Morning. Wow, clapping, I love it. Can you guys all hear me out there? It sounds like it. I almost forgot I had a clicker, put it in my pocket on accident. So yeah, excited to be here today and talk about GenAI. Just a little bit about me. I've been in this industry for over 20 years. I guess I aged myself a little bit back when we used to have other words, right? We used to talk about NLP more, and now it's all GenAI, and everyone might remember image registration versus computer vision and all those good things. So been working on this a long time and helping companies develop that. And we work with AWS. We've won a lot of awards and been runners-up in GenAI consulting for the last 2 years and in AI and other years. So mission is really here to help you guys. We built out over 175 projects over the last 2 years. We're the first partner to get access to the first SI partner to get access to Bedrock. So we've been building on Bedrock for 2.5 years. So if you guys have questions, feel free to come and find us. Our booth is right behind this in the Dev Center, right behind it. So excited to talk to you guys and see, whether we can continue the conversation we have today. How many of you guys saw this article? How many of you guys actually read any of these articles? Oh, actually way better than usual. It's, I love headlines nowadays. It's all a lot of clickbait, right? Trying to get people to come in and read it. But what did the article actually say? It did say, yes, 95% did not see measurable ROI. But what does measurable ROI mean, right? It doesn't mean they didn't see ROI. They just didn't see something that they felt really had a big return, right? 2x, 3x, or things like that. It might have only had like a 1.1x return, but they still, 40% of them did put this into deployment. And so it's still, even though that article said only 5%, you still saw 40% put into deployment. And the number I really like is that 67% of those were done by companies like Mission that were able to come in and help companies build because we have that expertise to help you. And the other thing it said, one of the issues people always had was they chose bad use cases, right? That is the one thing you should always be looking at is what use case am I doing, right? AI isn't the problem most of the time. AI does what you tell it, but you were choosing a bad problem to solve. You were looking at maybe something that was, I'm going to build images in my marketing team or something like that, and then you're having a hard time quantifying it because, hey, I'm only saving a little bit of money by doing that, and so you're not seeing that massive ROI. Now, people that were looking at better use cases that were automating, run-of-the-mill tasks that weren't that interesting, were able to see a lot more ROI. Also, a lot of internal experts are, important to have, you need it, but it's not insufficient, right? You need to also be working with people that understand the tech. And then, I'm sure you guys have seen it over and over, especially as you look at coding tools, that this is not just a technology change, it's a cultural change, right? How many of you guys have started to look at like Kiro as a developing platform? A couple of people, and so Kiro is really pushing on spec-driven coding, right? Most of the time when you're looking at coding, people just kind of start and they start making their application and they don't really think out all the little steps. But now, as you start using these coding agents, you have to start thinking about what are each of the steps. I need to start looking at it really early, and so now your developers need to start thinking more like product managers, right? So you're going to see this real cultural change that has to happen inside these systems. So it's really important that people understand that. So a little bit of a summary. We're going to talk about who we are, kind of mentioned it already. We do a lot of AWS stuff, tons of competencies in all the different spaces. And so we are a one-stop shop where we do cost ops and resell, 24/7 support, and then professional services. So if you're looking for any of those, feel free to come and talk to us. And now I like to just talk a little bit about GenAI. Who thinks GenAI is new? And obviously you can see my slide and know that I don't think it's new, right? It really dates back to 1906. Who thought it went back over 100 years? Anybody? Nobody thought it went back. So that was probabilistic text generation in 1906. Think about that. These are like handwritten algorithms to figure out what text should come next in a sentence. Then you kind of had a lot of early concepts in the 50s. There were a lot of rule-based systems. You started to see early neural nets, but then we had the AI winter, right? And then the 80s came, and now everyone had personal computers, and you started to see clusters in universities, so neural nets were pushed further and further again, right? And then in the early 2010s, this is when the research on GAN started, And a lot of it was really enabled because now I have the cloud, right? That's kind of when the cloud started. Now I have infinite compute and storage, essentially, right? And so that's really where you started to see all of these things. And then, in the 2020s, did anyone use GPT-1 or GPT-2? Past myself? A couple of guys, maybe, yeah. So like in the early 2020s, we were doing GPT-1 stuff, and then 22, GPT-2. There are things being done, and now everything is agents. Who looked at my pretty chart, right? I love using image generation. It's great. Does the timeline really work? Did anyone notice that great timeline? So I then prompted better. I'm like, I can prompt better. And I made it worse. How many of us love prompting? Anybody love prompting? But I really like a good timeline that has the 1500s mixed in with the 1900s. It's a really powerful tool here. So I like to ask this question. What innovation happened in 2023 that made everyone excited about GenAI? Anyone shout it out? ChatGPT. What was ChatGPT? Anybody? Okay. ChatGPT was someone made a website. That's it, right? These models existed. They just were more accessed by people like myself, that's a data scientist, that would spin it up in SageMaker. Maybe you're using Hugging Face at the time. But now you have a website that fronts a model that you can now talk to. They made it intuitive, right? It's cool, it works. And so, but that's the innovation when you really think about it, is someone just made it easier to access a model. That's it. That's the whole craze that started, is it's now easy for anyone to think about it, look at the ideas, and understand where you can go from there. So for us, we have our own chatbot. Everyone probably has a chatbot now, right? You can make them super easy. Bedrock even has OpenSearch, and you can create a chatbot. And you're going to ask all kinds of fun questions to your chatbot. Like I got a little joke going on with my own chatbot. But why is it a chatbot? It's really because that's the easiest way to do back and forth conversations, right? And you're really looking at, how do I simplify the interactions? Because everyone is looking at, I just want to be able to talk to it and get information out. Now what we've noticed is that people now just confuse everything with a chatbot, right? Because they want to talk to things. They may want to have traditional ML models. You still may want to do clustering, or you want to do some kind of prescriptive analytics or things like that. But all that people want to say is like, I just want to talk to my data, or I want to do this. And so everything gets buried behind a chatbot. So even though someone's coming to you and they may be asking about GenAI, often it's just an interface, right? So to think about that, your chatbot's often just your interface, and now chatbots are going to kickstart, agentic workflows. And then the other thing we see a lot of is just Gen BI. How many of you guys have used like QuickSight-Q or QuickSuite or any of those tools? A couple of people. So, they're really nice, but like you said, they do have limitations, and so people are using generative systems with cool React libraries to come and populate all of your graphs, and then you really get into pushing an LLM to write code. So there's a lot of really fun things there, but at the end of the day, everyone is looking at, how can I just talk to the system? And so that's why chatbots have become our main interface. So let's get for a minute. I like images, as you guys can see, right? The good. I asked for a monkey astronaut riding the bike on the moon. How did we do? We do good? Well, it did mostly good. There is a moon in the background, if anyone didn't catch that bit. And early on, it was really bad at letters, right? So it actually works pretty well with letters and all that. And then we get into the bad. Anybody have a guess on what I wanted the system to do? Any guesses? Tower Bridge, good guess. But I asked for an AWS architecture diagram of Glue connected to Redshift connected to QuickSight. How did we do? Anybody? Did we do good? Did we do bad? This woman is very smart. She says we did good, and we did. I asked for an architecture diagram. It's buildings. You made architecture. I said glue. It glued them together. How many people know what Redshift is? Sunset, right? Sunset. So it made a sunset. It did exactly what I asked it to do. It just didn't really understand that I needed to have a diagram that had boxes of SageMaker and things like that attached to it. But it did exactly what I wanted. And so that's one of the bad parts about GenAI is it will always give you an answer. It's not necessarily the answer you want or you need, but it will give you an answer. And so you, as the individual, have to be looking at the answers, and you have to come and understand, what am I trying to do? Now the ugly. We were doing an event in July, and we wanted Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Now these are some older GenAI images, but I use them for an example because the new ones will create Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but before they wouldn't. And we went through a lot of prompt iterations. There's like 30 pictures in the series, so I only show a few. And I was like, give me a reindeer with a red nose and nothing. Then I was like trying to go closer, and it was like, give me a reindeer with a clown nose, and it gave me a balloon with a clown balloon. So it didn't really get it, right? Now, I was giving this talk a while back, and someone goes, do you know what the biggest problem is with your images? And I said, no. I'm sitting there thinking, hey, I'm gonna win because it's not Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? And so this guy's like, do you know the real issue? And I don't know how many of you guys know, but this is a white-tailed buck deer. It's not even a reindeer. So if you're asking questions to GenAI and you don't really know the answer or what you're expecting, you can't even validate that it's giving you the right answer. Because to me, I was like, oh yeah, that looks like a reindeer, just doesn't look like Rudolph. So it's really important as you're building these systems that you can understand, how do I validate it? How do I prove out that it is giving me the answers I want? How am I going to write unit tests? How am I going to make cases that just validate that yes, the answer is coming out, especially when you're going to deliver a system to people that may not know what the answer should be because it will hallucinate. How many of you guys get inundated with all the news, right? Even last week was crazy, right? There are like 10 new announcements. Everything's giving you whiplash. The advice we often give to people is choose a model that works for your particular use case, and each use case may have a slightly different model that you're using, but choose one family, and then you just keep using that family because you're going to gain expertise. They're all like coding languages, right? You don't want your coders to be switching from Python to .NET to everything because they're just not going to be as adept at getting the answers as if they just always are working in the same family. And every model's always like leapfrogging the next, right? So wait 2 weeks and whatever your favorite model is gonna be the top model on the leaderboards. So you don't have to always do that model hopping. The other thing that's always kind of interesting to me is, did you guys read any of the reports when OpenAI launched GPT-5? Anybody read the reports? So OpenAI said that GPT-5 hallucinates 40 to 45% of the time. Anybody know that? Huge, right? Hallucinations are astronomical in these systems. Now, if you connect GPT-5 to the internet, which is why OpenAI has GPT-5 connected to the internet, the hallucination rate drops to 6%. And so that's why if you're building a model inside of AWS, you need to be either attaching it to the internet or putting it with a RAG database so that you can push your hallucinations down, right? If you're not doing that, you will be looking at the probability of a high hallucination rate depending on the questions you're asking. So it's really important to think about that when you're building out these systems. GenAI agents. Is everyone tired of GenAI agents? No? Wow, I'm tired of GenAI agents. So agents are fun, right? It's gonna go do everything. I've got an agent there. He's my group leader. He's got all my other sub-agents. I'm gonna send them out. I'm gonna do all kinds of cool things. We're gonna have some autonomous goal achievement, and we're gonna decide how to answer all of our questions, right? Now, when you look at agents, it's really important to understand your use case, because I feel, especially most engineers I talk to have just gotten lazy. They're like drawing a diagram that's just like agent to do this, an agent to do that, an agent to do this, right? They're not even really putting in the thought, like what does each of those agents do? Is it actually an agent or is it a prompt? On my team, there's a lot of people and we have conversations all the time. Is that a prompt or is it an agent? And there's a lot of things between the two of those, right? Like if I go to an agent, I have to build the framework, although there's Agent Core right now to do the framework to make it easier. But you still have, when you're doing agents, delays in your time. So if you have time critical matters, often you're going to want to just run with prompts versus agents because you're going to get the answer back faster through just a prompt. And most of the time, you can prompt most of the things you're trying to do that an agent can do. And so that's things to look at is what's my use case? Do I really need an agent? Agents are also potentially going to be more expensive and they take longer. So you really have to think about what's my system? Am I really doing something that's an agent or not an agent? So we've done a lot of use cases, as I mentioned, tons and tons of cool stuff. I won't get to talk about too many of these, but we've done everything. I haven't seen anything new in at least 6 months. So if you guys have use cases, want to ask about, hey, would this be possible? Can we do that or not? We're here, like I said, back over that way, right on this side of the CrowdStrike booth. The biggest use cases we see in the market right now are IDP, right? About 60% of the market's doing IDP stuff, really cool space. Then you've got chatbots, as I mentioned, doing chatbots, but then there's everything else, right? Code generation, recruiting, drug discovery. There's cool things you can do with chatbots where you can do training, educational training or other training of your employees. And if they're going the wrong route, you can iteratively change how the chatbot responds. So we had that built in where we were working with a company that does medical training for new doctors. And if the doctor was going down a wrong path of questioning, the agent would then get agitated, well, the patient would then get agitated and start being like, hey, you've asked me that already and stuff like that, right? So there's really cool things you can do. Dubbing and translation's been big, all kinds of cool stuff. And then, like I mentioned, chatbots is that interface. If you really want to learn about chatbots or have us build you a chatbot, we have a lot of really cool fast track packages out there that we can help you guys build these. These are things we've done day in and day out. They're really cool. Quick Suite, Quick Site, that's something you guys will see a lot of this week, something to look at and talk about. So I'll just skip through IDP for a second. So this was a really fun use case for IDP. We were working with an insurance company and they're underwriters, so they get applications all the time. And the underwriters were spending 4 to 5 hours on this system. And so this company, it gets 10 to 15,000 applications and they were growing, they just got bought by a bigger insurance company. And so they can't hire fast enough, right? So that's one of those use cases where you look at how much just manual work is there. How are you going to solve that problem? And if it's most of the time I hire and train somebody, then you can probably automate it, right? So that's a system to look at. I'm going to automate this. And then you can build out IDP, really cool. And then you can put everything into a database and you can ask questions to it, right? So now the underwriter will get results. And then if he has questions where he wants a further answer, he can then ask about the application to do his work. And so it was really neat. We were able to take their time from 4 to 5 hours down to 2 hours, saving them 50%. And so there's massive things. This was just the first phase, right? We're looking at how can we help continue to improve this to get it down even further. So there are tons of savings out there when you look at these chatbots. So another retrieval augmented generation, I'm sure everyone knows retrieval augmented generation. Here's a pretty standard architecture, right? Some kind of interface, connected to an LLM, connected to your agents at the end of the day and all that. And so we were working with a company, and this is where we get into all of that like timing bits, right? So this is an IVR system. So now you have to think about somebody's on the phone, they're calling, and they're talking to your bot, and so it has to be fast. So I don't know if you guys have used Nova, but Nova Micro is actually pretty awesome where you can sort through really quickly with Nova Micro on the inference side, get to an answer, and see what's going on there. And this was kind of the architecture for kind of an IVR system. Has Connect, which we all love Connect, Lex, Polly to do the text to voice, so a lot of really cool things going on. Now, I have way too many slides, but we do lots of cool stuff. We could have talked about agents and cool things. So on agents, I'm giving a talk with AWS in like 2 weeks about agents. So anyone that was here, just look for a talk about agents. It's a pretty cool use case. Lots of fun architecture at the end. Agent core, and I have way too many slides, sorry. But if you want to work together, you can find us in the booth in the back. I put out a newsletter every week. I think we talk about fun, cool stuff. So if anyone wants to hear my random thoughts, this is how you can hear it. Appreciate you guys all attending today, and they're going to give me the hook in 19 seconds. So if anyone has a question, like I said, I'll be over at our booth for the next 30-ish minutes and happy to talk through anything you guys want. But thank you, everyone.